you. I know we skipped last weekend because of the Labor Day holiday. Hope you guys all had a fabulous holiday and have had a good week getting into the rhythm of whatever school and work might look like for you wherever you are around the world. And I am thrilled to be here in Atlanta talking to so many of you scattered across the globe, dealing with a lot of different issues. Some of you isolated, some of you very alone. We'll talk about that as well. And of course, the pandemic continuing to linger with really no hope being offered by our leadership. So that's the frustrating part, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But welcome to Sunday Night Live with me. I'm Dr. Taz, if you don't know me, and I try to do some of these Sunday Night Lives just to keep us connected. It's a really tough time. I think anytime you go to turn on any news channel right now, it's a lot of negativity, it's a lot of unhappiness, all of that stuff, and I think that just really wears on everyone. So we are live today with everyone in my Instagram community, so welcome, along with everyone on YouTube and Facebook. So thrilled to have you guys all here. Continue to post your questions as we go through a lot of what I'll be talking about today, but we're going to get started. So one of the things before we get into all the headlines and into all the news, I wanted to make sure you know what's going on in Dr. Taz world. I will be announcing the winner of it seems like I posted that forever ago and just forgot to announce the winner, but the winner of the pediatric wellness basket. I'll be announcing that. That has Calm. It's actually down there on the floor. I'll grab it in a minute. But that has Calm, great products from Genexa, which is a company determined to get additives and fillers out of our children's medications and over-the-counter remedies that we all use. It has also got some greens to get our children's immune systems primed, and probiotics, all the good stuff we talk about in terms of keeping your immune system healthy. So definitely I'll be announcing that tomorrow. So watch out for that. And we'll talk about the next giveaway in the next few weeks. We're going to hold off on doing a lot more giveaways, but the next few after that will be all about your immune system and getting you ready for the fall and winter and flu and cold, which everybody is asking me all kinds of questions about. So I definitely want to make sure we get to that as well. All right. And then making sure you guys saw, hopefully you're a part of the Taz tribe and you're getting my emails, and hopefully you saw the link to this guide. This is the latest guide. This is the PCOS guide, polycystic ovarian syndrome. It's an epidemic, guys. It actually got me into the world of integrative and holistic medicine, but I continue to be shocked by how many women today continue to battle this particular disease. It goes undiagnosed, untreated. It starts as early as 13 or 14 in our young girls and has a version that extends all the way to menopause. So if you've got hair loss, if you got acne, irregular cycles, you're having trouble getting pregnant, painful periods, or you're balding, all of these are some of the signs and symptoms of PCOS. So I try to do a brain dump essentially in this PCOS guide. We did a webinar last week. If you join the tribe, you get links to these webinars and guides directly in your email box. So if you have a moment, join the tribe after we get done, and you'll get all kinds of great info right in your box and keeping you up to date on all the latest and greatest coming up. Ahead for the week, we have a thyroid webinar on Friday, so you'll be seeing the link go up for that shortly. And it's connected, honestly, to PCOS because all of these hormones are related to each other and really affect how we feel. Okay, let's move on. We're going to start with our quote. Almost every successful person begins with two beliefs. The future can be better than the present, and I have the power to make it so. I love that because in a time where we are being trained to feel hopeless, like there is no solution at the end of this tunnel, remember the future will be better. We'll learn something or the other along the way through this journey. I know I've learned a lot as well and have received so many great gifts. My daughter Rania, by the way, showed me this video, and I should have posted it. I'll try to post it later. It's the Tom Freely video. Have any of you guys seen that? And it's this guy telling a story. It's like forward into the future, but he's telling a bedtime story to his little ones about the pandemic. And he says, and the little girl or boy says, tell me about the virus. What was it like? What was it like? And he goes back and says, once upon a time in 2020, and then talks about, what the world was like and what it's like now, and how it was a land of plenty, but we wasted and ran around so much and didn't connect with one another, and how that changed after the pandemic. So it's a great video. I'll post it so you guys can see that as well. But anyhow, Remember, you have tremendous powers in your hands to make a difference, to light up somebody's day, to take care of your own health, to spread the message of health and wellness, to know that we will get through this pandemic. And it is much more than drugs and vaccines and carriers and asymptomatic rates and all this other stuff. But we will continue to talk about that. And if you guys have been following me, you're probably tired of hearing about that. Okay, let me break down some of the news releases and the headlines. We've got one coming in saying COVID-19 might have been here since December. For those of you here in the United States, and I know I've got people all over in New York and California all saying hello, Pennsylvania, Atlanta, hello to everybody. But, that is disheartening because remember, we didn't shut down till March. We didn't really even start taking it seriously to mid-March. But the way they know this is that in a UCLA-led study, they actually saw that there was a 50 to 75% increase in respiratory infections. That was an irregular pattern compared to previous seasons. And the point that this particular study makes is that we should be tracking this data. And the minute we see a spike or something unusual happening, and we need to sit up and pay attention, because pandemics may be here to stay. As climate change, globalization, all of this stuff continues, we're going to see viruses and bacteria that maybe we never saw before. So looking at data continues to be incredibly important. A lot in the news this week, and I'm not sure why exactly, but a lot in the news about pregnant women and how they may be affected by COVID-19, and what they're finding that the increased pregnancy stress has led to just a feeling of insecurity, and pregnant women really struggling, that they're worried about their children, they're worried about what's going to happen, they're worried about their own infection, and that level of stress seems to be rampant amongst women that are pregnant. So pregnancy having a definite impact when it comes to anxiety and depression during this pandemic. If you know somebody that's pregnant, reach out to them, maybe comfort them, check on them. And if you are pregnant, I just want to reassure you, first of all, pregnant women have incredible immune systems to begin with. It's almost like everything in the body gets fired up and ready to take care of what they have to do. And I think secondly, optimizing your key nutrients continues to be critical. So getting in those levels of vitamin C and D and magnesium and B and all these other things that we've been talking about and seeing how they've played out. I think Fauci himself said he was on vitamin D and vitamin C. And, if you had talked about that, 6 months ago, so many doctors would have said, oh, there's no evidence and there's no research. But slowly but surely, more and more information keeps coming out about how the immune system matters. So much so, I have another study talking about that delayed immune responses are driving the mortality with COVID-19 in men and the elderly. So for whatever reason, in men and elderly, we are not seeing their immune systems activate. In fact, they're saying, researchers found that the immune cell responses were not activated until 3 days after the onset of infection. Well, guys, we've talked about this. We've talked about how we want to punch this thing out within the first 24 to 48 hours. And if it's taking 3 days or so to get the immune system to wake up and say, hey, let's do something, well, then you're already behind the ball there, because you're about to go into cytokine storm. You're about to have where every system and every organ is getting affected as well. So what can we do? Again, it's the immune system. And I have that immune support guide. I've posted it a number of times during this pandemic, but I encourage you guys to continue to take a look at it. And for the guys who are listening or who may be in our life, you guys can be so stubborn. We love you, but you can be incredibly stubborn. Please, please, please listen to the people around you. Read my immune support guide. Let's get on vitamin D, vitamin C, astragalus to protect your immune system so you don't have this delayed immune response. I mean, it's right here in this particular journal article, which was released on the 8th of September. So again, our men and our elderly at risk because their immune system takes much longer to respond. Okay, moving on to different topics, not necessarily COVID related, and then we're going to move on to the flu, which is something a lot of you guys have been asking me about. Always a fun topic too. All right, more about babies. So we've talked about how pregnancy has increased, how COVID-19 has increased pregnancy stress for women having babies. Well, babies can feel that stress. This is a study from the European College of Neuropsychopharmacology. That's a mouthful. But talking about how the baby's heartbeat reveals the stress of having a depressed or anxious mom. Again, I've talked so many times about the mom-child connection. That is a core Chinese medicine concept, that the health of the mother is related to the health of the child and vice versa, and you can't treat them separately. Well, here we have the baby's heartbeat reflecting the stress and the anxiety of a depressed or anxious mother. So just for all you moms out there, or if you're pregnant, like finding ways to help you relieve anxiety, help build that community. Women were not meant to have children in isolation or alone. They were meant to have loving and supportive people around them. And I think with the pandemic, when everyone's putting walls up as to who can interact and who can't, here's the situation. You need to be with your mom, your sisters, your family, and observe precautions and protect your immune systems and have them do the same. But if you're pregnant, your baby feels your stress, and we want you to feel loved and supported as you go through this really important, special time in your life. So keep that in mind if you think that you're starting to feel those feelings of anxiety and depression and you're stressed. Now, here's another one talking about the link of stress. And it's so funny, the more I do this work, it seems like we can connect everything right back to being stressed. So this particular study is talking about how chronic stress induces bone loss. So we have so many conversations, or at least I do, about bone loss, early menopause, and how that leads to osteopenia and osteoporosis for so many young women, or even menopause and dealing with osteoporosis or osteopenia in those settings. Well, here we have evidence that stress is linked to bone loss. In fact, chronic stress and significant high anxiety levels induce bone loss in human subjects. This is crazy. I mean, this is a very clear manifestation of how stress and chronic stress affects our bodies. And again, we're in a pandemic where so many people are feeling this stress. I talk to patients every day. I talk to friends and colleagues, and this stress is palpable, and you guys are feeling it. So again, build your communities, build your support system, have those anxiety tools in place, do that 20 minutes of meditation in the morning, get out there and exercise and be in nature, get off these screens, except of course to listen to what I have to say, but no, get off these screens, and kind of keep that amount of screen consumption lower than your green consumption is basically the best way to say it. But all of it is really playing a role in our health and our long-term health and what's going to happen here. All right, so those are the headlines. Now I want to talk to you guys for a second about the flu. Are you guys up for that conversation? Let me take a question or two. Do I think COVID can be spread from person to person via contact, or it's mostly through the air? Well, I mean, it's sort of a related question. Great question, Leslie. Kind of a related question. It is going to be close contact. We do have the data and the studies that show that under 6 feet is what's considered contact. And it's because the airborne particles can travel up to that distance to infect another person. That's why I'm a huge believer in masks. And every other country has used mask as a protective mechanism because it sort of stops the transmission of airborne particles. So I wouldn't fight the mask component of this conversation. Wear those masks. And that's one way to see your loved ones without being completely isolated. And until we have better direction in the future, we might need to wear masks through this fall and winter season. So I hope that answers your question. It is airborne, but the closer you are, the more likely you are to get infected by that airborne particle. It's airborne, but if you're more than 6 feet away, it's probably not going to affect you, or you're probably not going to get it. Okay. And remember, even if you get exposed, what's the right answer to keeping it away? It's again, keeping that immune system primed and healthy. All right. So that's the key thing that we all need to keep in mind. All right. Let's see if there are any other questions just about COVID, because I'm about to move on to the flu, which is sort of related, but I want to make sure we don't mess up. Hi there, Gina. How are you? Thanks for being such a great follower. I see other really familiar names here too. So thank you guys all for taking time out to join me today. All right, let's talk about the flu. Getting some questions about the flu vaccine. Are we doing it? Are we not doing it? What do I think? All right, so let's just break this down a little bit. So the flu vaccine we do in practice at Center Spring MD. We choose a thimerosal-free vaccine because we feel like it's safer and it's cleaner and for all those different reasons. I do believe in the flu vaccine, especially for certain populations. But this season, That hedging, I actually am going to let go of. Let me explain the hedging a little bit about the flu vaccine for just a moment. And I think it's important for everybody to understand that, because here's an article from Science, that particular journal, and it's talking about the flu vaccine and its limited effectiveness. And that's important to remember for previous flu seasons. So the best vaccines like MMR, which is measles, mumps, and rubella, diphtheria, tetanus, all of those almost provide 100% protection for life. Now that's a pretty good vaccine. If you're going to be protected 100% for life, that's a good gamble, right? To have maybe a few of the side effects or things like that. But the flu vaccine in particular rapidly evolves and changes. This is my concern about a COVID vaccine. And that's why I think hanging up all our hopes on a COVID vaccine is putting too much all into one bucket. We've got to have a comprehensive, holistic approach to this. But look, going back to the flu vaccine in the United States, between 2009 and 2019, the flu vaccine ranged from an effectiveness of 19% to 60%. And that protection faded very quickly. They are saying if you lived in a temperate region of the world and received the shot in fall, your immunity could disappear before the end of that winter. Really not helpful statistics when it comes to the flu vaccine. That's why this particular article, and again, it's not accounting for COVID. COVID's a game changer. So hang with me just while I try to explain this. But not accounting for COVID, we're finding that researchers found spikes of these particular cells for influenza 4 weeks after immunization. But after 1 year, those cells were virtually gone. And this tracks with the fact that there was just decreasing protection after getting the flu vaccine. So getting it like super early in the summer when flu vaccine may not hit till December or January or February, those are folks that may not be protected. I think that is also where the flu vaccine gets the reputation that it simply doesn't work. So that's the science behind what the flu vaccine is doing. Now, what has happened every season, they have to guess at which particular strain of the vaccine of the flu is going to be more dominant. Last winter, it was flu A. This winter, the leading flu strain seems to be flu B. Flu B is harder on our kids. There's actually, a tougher time with the flu in our children with flu B than there is with flu A. Now, there are medications that help with the flu, like Tamiflu, and there's some great natural remedies too. I love using Boiron's Oxalidium. It works very well when you take it in the early stages or even preventively against getting the flu. Astragalus plays a role here too because it helps protect the immune system. But what we have an issue with right now is when we're already dealing with this COVID unknown, and then we're dealing with flu B, I do think this is a season where you do want to think about getting vaccinated for the flu, and you want to do it according to the American Academy of Pediatrics before October. What we do want to do is bring illness burden down so that our kids can stay in school and they can continue their regular activities. Because right now we're already seeing such a toll on the kids that are staying home and having to do virtual schooling, and all the parents that are having to do that as well. So universally, at least here in the United States and the World Health Organization as well, they've all come out saying the flu vaccine should be done in anyone 6 months of age or older, and it should be done ideally before October because they're trying to prevent this flu spike as we continue to deal with the COVID ups and downs and cases going all over the place. So again, this is an unusual fall winter. It's one where we have to double and triple how much we're taking care of ourselves, and thinking about being cautious about the flu is equally important. I know even at our practice, we are trying to game plan for how are we going to know when our patients have the flu, have COVID, have a cold, have a sinus infection, have strep. What's our strategy going to be to screen between all of these? Because at the end of the day, we have to take care of our people. So again, this is a tricky time, and the flu vaccine, I do think, has a role and a place in this particular time. There are side effects to the flu vaccine. Live viruses or live vaccines, which can only be given in people 2 years of age or older and those who don't have chronic conditions and are not pregnant, you can see a transient fever, flu-like symptoms. They should go away in a couple of days. The inactivated vaccine can be done for people as young as 6 months of age, but same thing, you can get a very mild version of it as well. My advice and suggestion, up that immune system stuff, clean up the diet, get rid of the sugar, get consistent sleep. Moms and dads watching me, Watch those sleepovers with your children. I am fighting this constantly here at home and really struggling with trying to make my children understand the importance of getting consistent sleep and how that plays into their vulnerability to any virus, whether it's the flu, the cold, COVID, you name it. So they have to get consistent sleep. Please make that a priority this particular season. I think, again, upping vitamin D, vitamin C, their B vitamins, all critical. Putting them on astragalus, one of my favorite things. The Defender, remember, is astragalus, C, and zinc. Kids can take it too if they can swallow a pill. I'm working on a kid version of that too as we speak. But all of these are things you can do. And I think the flu vaccine is probably an added piece, although, again, just like COVID, it's not going to be the answer to all of it, because it's going to guess that the strain being dominant is B, and it's going to hope that that's what actually plays out, but hopefully it can bring down the caseload so we're not dealing with this overrun of flu and COVID and everything like that within our system. Again, we do have the vaccine at Center Spring MD. It is thimerosal and preservative free. It's the cleanest version that we can find. And we try to take that middle approach when dealing with so many of these different conditions that we are dealing with. So that is where I've been getting asked a ton of questions about the flu and what I think. We do need to start prepping now for the fall. I don't know what's going to happen with Halloween, but typically Halloween marked in or ushered in sort of the season of sickness, as I called it, because it's sort of where sugar consumption went out of control and everybody was doing all kinds of activities together. So that might be different this year. We'll have to see. But now is the time to kind of take this stuff seriously. I had one other random question about the thyroid, so I'm going to make sure I address it. Somebody asked natural remedies for thyroid. Now, again, I'm going to do that thyroid webinar this Friday, so please join me. We'll put the link up, but it's going to be all about your thyroid and strategies and things to think about when it comes to thyroid health. But the particular question I got asked was, what can you do to keep your thyroid healthy naturally? And that's a great question, because if you're just in the borderline sluggish area of hypothyroidism, where you're feeling cold and achy and not so great, but you're not fully hypothyroid that justifies taking a lot of medications, then going on thyroid medication may not make sense right away. So what we'll often do is have our patients do a couple of things. We'll have them go gluten-free, because there's such a relationship between gluten and the thyroid. We will actually sometimes start iodine. So iodoral is one of our favorite iodine forms to start, and have them go ahead and begin that. Take some selenium, 200 micrograms a day is the dose recommended of selenium. And then in addition to that, I think that monitoring and managing stress and iron levels becomes important as well. So those are some of the things you can do for your thyroid naturally, because again, it's all connected. And if that's not working, then in practice, we often make a decision of, hey, let's start a very low dose of thyroid medication and see what we can do there. All right, so that rounds out questions. Anyone have any other questions? I am checking this feed. We have so many people on there on here today. So thank you guys for joining me. I don't see any other questions. All right. Oh, wait, one more. How best would you advise me to protect myself from COVID and the flu as I travel out of state for a wedding? So here's what I would do. I'd wear a mask. I would observe really good hand hygiene. I would take vitamin D. I would take the Defender, which is zinc, astragalus, and C, or take them all separately, whatever works for you, and carry with you Boirin's oselinium, which is one of my favorite homeopathic remedies when it comes to the flu. So carry that with you. If you start to feel bad, you're going to double your D, you're going to double up on the Defender, and you start the oselinium as is sort of written out on the instructions in the package. So that's what I would do if you're traveling this winter. I haven't traveled yet, guys. I haven't been on a plane, which is crazy to me, but I haven't been on a plane since March, and I'm supposed to start some of this travel back up in October, but I haven't traveled yet. Any of you who have flown have told me that it's actually a rather pleasant experience these days. So hopefully you'll have a good experience. They apparently give you a bag to wipe everything down. You're masked up. There's some separation between people. So it might actually bring the joy back in flying. Who would have thought that? All right. So that's what I've got. So reminders for the week. We've got the webinar on Friday. We have, are there any lives? I don't think there are any other lives this week. We do the Tribe Live on Wednesday night. So those of you who've joined my tribe, Wednesday night, I go live and I take your questions and we talk about different topics or aspects that are near and dear to your heart or things that you're worried about. So join the tribe, and we'll continue to follow the headlines and the news, but remember to stay positive and hopeful, support one another, take care of your immune system, really watch those kids. I do continue to insist and believe that they need to be in school. I think it is important for their mental health, for their parents' mental health as well, and for their overall well-being and continued progress. We're seeing such a decline in so many children because they are not going to school. And I think globally, every country has made an incredible initiative to get kids in school, to use potting and contact tracing and technology to really keep like little units of kids together so that they still feel like they have community and activity and purpose. So we do want to continue to keep that as a focus and a goal moving forward. At the same time, safety is important. I wouldn't focus on caseload. I see the news headlines constantly like ringing the bell of this is what the caseload is, but I would focus more on, yes, that's what the caseload is, but what are the outcomes? And I think our mortality rates have stabilized. The virus is not as aggressive as it was previously. So I think we need to keep all those factors into consideration. So stay positive, stay hopeful. So much of what you're getting delivered now is filtered through political motivations and ambitions. So just have an open mind and listen to multiple sides and opinions to arrive at the right answer. But we will get through this. We will see the other side of it. And maybe it's like that video that Rania showed me, that we'll be telling stories that once upon a time in 2020, when we lived in a land of plenty, but we needed to learn so many deep lessons. And maybe that's the purpose of all of this. So I'll leave you with that. Have a fabulous week, and we'll connect soon. Send me your questions, ideas, thoughts, anything you've got to me. And we will continue to pick this conversation up next Sunday night. And if not next Sunday night, definitely the Sunday after, but I'll post for sure our schedule. All right. Have a great night. Have a great week ahead. I will talk to you guys soon.